Hi, I'm Elliot Trotter, and welcome to the final hard cap of the 2011 Club Championships for the women's division. I'm here with our women's correspondent, Melissa Whitmer, who's going to talk a bit about the quarters, semis, and look at the finals, and hopefully get us some predictions. Melissa, how'd today go? It started out a bit rainy, became beautiful and sunny.
Today, this morning in the quarters was really rainy, a little cold and wet. I think that definitely had an effect on what defenses teams decided to play. Saw a bit of zone this morning, but later in the day as the weather got nicer, a little bit more man-on-man defense was more prevalent. So in the quarters today, the interesting games in the quarters were Scandal versus Phoenix and Traffic versus Capitals. So the Traffic versus Capitals, of course, was a rematch of these teams have played together many times, and Capitals came out on top this time, so that was maybe a bit of a surprise, especially the score was a little bit of bigger spread than maybe people would have expected based on play earlier in the tournament.
Yeah, it was 15-7.
Right. And I wasn't at that game, so it's hard for me to say what exactly went wrong, but Michael Lawler said that the Capitals just looked completely different than they had earlier in the tournament. So I guess they had incorporated some new players since Canadian Nationals, and so I guess maybe the weekend was a process of figuring out how those players could be best incorporated into their structure. And I guess they figured it out because they took it to Traffic in a big game. The other big game was again Scandal versus Phoenix, so that was a rematch of the Mid-Atlantic regionals, and I think Phoenix was out for revenge. They came out in that game really strong. Scandal, for whatever reason, looked stagnant, and they dug themselves a hole. But that game ended up being really exciting. Scandal, they didn't really decide to wake up until middle of the second half. But when they did, they busted out their four-person cup that worked so well for them yesterday, and they got the breaks back. They brought it back to 14s. In that game, 14 versus 14, there was a throw to the end zone from Phoenix, and Octavia Payne laid out for the D. And in the process, a foul was called. She didn't contest it, and the Phoenix coach wanted me to mention Octavia Payne's what he felt was a really tough call for her to make in such a tightly contested game on 14s of that game. So I thought I would mention that. But yeah, then Scandal ended up winning that game 16-14. So that was the quarters.
Phoenix, rather.
Phoenix ended up winning that game.
Yeah, I know you were rooting for Scandal, but I'm sorry it didn't turn out that way.
I can't change the results, I know.
So we also had Riot, pretty triumphant over Showdown, and Fury as well, pretty triumphant over Molly Brown. I think in listening to the feed and seeing your great tweets, it started out close, but then the other team, the Fury and Riot, sort of pushed through.
Yeah.
So what about semis? Did we have another batch of close games, or did I'm gonna give you a little hint. Riot and Fury prevailed, but was it close at all?
Well, watching the Fury Capitals game, that game, Fury came out early and they just kind of kept their lead. Fury just rolled with it. There wasn't really it wasn't a highlight reel game. It was just really solid handling by Nancy Sun, Emily Damon, and Alex Snyder of Fury, and Fury just looked in control that whole game. I think they were just a better team. It was just really solid play by both teams, but I think Fury was just better. And the Riot Phoenix game, that was started off pretty close. Phoenix definitely held their own, which is tough to do after that tight game against Scandal. They still had enough legs to take it to Riot, which is a very athletic team. They were hanging with them on their man-on-man D, so that was really impressive. There was no breaks until Riot got the first break to take it to half, 8-6, and then I think they came out a half and got another break right away, and that was really tough for Phoenix to deal with. They dug themselves a little hole too, but they pressed on. I think from there on, it was just Riot was just ahead for the rest of the game. But Phoenix definitely put on a good performance. I think they performed better this weekend than maybe what was anticipated from them. So you got to give them props for that.
Okay, and now our finals, Riot versus Fury once again. It didn't happen the last couple of years, but it's happened in many years prior. I know that you haven't necessarily been watching these two teams quite as much, but based on the teams that Fury and Riot have competed against, what are your predictions for that matchup?
Well, in watching Fury and Riot today, I think Fury just looks really in control of themselves. And in watching Riot today, Riot had some kind of questionable games on the first day. They had a close game against Ozone, and kind of makes me question their consistency. Today, late in the game against Phoenix, they should have been maybe shutting it out, but there's a bunch of really long points with unforced errors. I think fatigue may have been a factor for Riot, which is surprising for such an athletic team.
Riot, as I understand, is potentially down a few players to injury.
Yeah, this is also true. Yeah, so I think that definitely has an effect on it, for sure. But so I'm going to call the finals. I think it's going to be Fury over Riot.
All right, you're putting Fury over Riot, even though Riot already beat Fury once in this tournament. You think Fury has been able to brush off that loss?
I think so. And I'm basing this prediction mainly on just what I saw today. So that may or may not be a good way to go, but that's how I'm going to call it.
All right. Well, Melissa Whitmer has been covering the women's division for Skyd here at the 2011 Club Championships. This is Hardcap, and I'm Elliot Trotter for Skyd Magazine.